Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our September City of New Ulm Park and Rec Commission. Appreciate everyone's attendance here on a beautiful afternoon. Welcome to our guests, a lot of familiar faces joining us today in person, so thanks for being a part of our meeting. First thing, I think we know everyone here, so shouldn't need to do any reintroductions. Thank you, Ryan, for attending. Second item of business is to review our agenda for the September 11th meeting. It was sent out ahead of time in our packet. Hopefully everyone had a chance to review it. Would look for any recommendations or comments on the agenda or a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion
I'll second it.
and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to item number 3, approval of the minutes from our August 14th meeting. Again, they were sent out in the packet. Hopefully people had an opportunity to review them. I apologize for my absence. I was having a great afternoon, not to rub it in. Enjoying a beautiful day in New Ulm at the Country Club. So looks like you did just fine without me. Robust discussion and minutes.
Make
Any-
a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any more discussion on the meeting minutes from August 14th? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item of business, item number 4, reviewing our August department activity report. This again was sent out in the packet, recaps a lot of the activities from a programming standpoint, the parks, and some of the utilization of our facilities. Another reminder, I know it's a busy season, but a lot of activity happening, great activity across the park and rec system. Any comments or questions for Director Schmitz or Assistant Director Corman? Hearing none, this report will be filed with the meeting packet today in the minutes. On to item number 5, City Council meeting recap. There were 2 meetings since the last time we met, August 15th and September 5th. Look to Director Schmitz if you would provide an update and any follow-up for the Park and Rec Commission.
Certainly, Chair Fire, thank you, and Commissioners. The August 15th meeting saw the city deed 30 acres to the Minnesota Army National Guard for their new facilities out on Highway 14 West, indirectly related to Park and Rec, and of course all our municipal departments and the community in general. September 5th saw them the City Council tabled the leash law and directed the city attorney to prepare an agreement with the New Ulm Baseball Association to operate an advertising program in Johnson and Miller parks. So those were the items directly or indirectly related to Park and Rec from the City Council over the past month.
Okay, any follow-up questions on either of those topics or any items from City Council pertaining to Park and Rec business?
Is there something we need to provide for the parks, for the the leash law? I mean, if they tabled it, did they need more information from someone, or?
Yes, Commissioners, the City Council asked for some more information. They would like to hear from the Animal Control Officer and find out what sort of reports and statistics are available through the Police Department and law enforcement. They were also interested in other options of potential dog park land or off-leash dog park areas. And I think we're also going to be providing them with the details of municipal ordinances from the region. There was a listing of pure market municipalities in our region that have leash laws, and most of them do, but we didn't provide the exact ordinance language that they use. So it'll be going back at some point in the next month or 2, I imagine, and the City Council will decide. I mean, the real options are, do we want the leash law reinstated in parks? It was taken out of parks in '04 and put on the trail. It had been in parks for decades prior to that, many decades, but we don't have that exact information. We're going to try and dig that out of the archives also. There's the overall overreaching ordinance that says all dogs have to be on leash or under direct control. and there's confusion about what direct control means, especially legally. So there's, do they want the leash law citywide or just in parks? Or leave it now where it's on the trail for certain or under direct control citywide?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, more to come. We'll move on to old business. Item number 6 under old business, renew local option sales tax expansion, has my name listed there. So it's been on our agenda for a couple years now. Probably the most recent update is there's been a work session called for the city council and some other city leaders on September 19th at 1 p.m. Remember the location, I think it's at ISD 88.
Yes, the
in
district
their
boardroom in the middle school, where all the meetings are going to be moved later this week.
Later this week, okay. So I think main goal, objective of that session, as I understand, is for the council to get grounded in meeting with bound council and financial advisors around the options as it relates to planning for future local option sales tax projects and the financing of such. I think still for the council to be considering is to move forward and begin planning and project planning and implementation and construction of the projects in 2018, or delay that planning and implementation until after the current sales tax runs out. So our Park and Rec Commission has, I believe, voted twice to with a recommendation of pursuing the planning and implementation of the Renew projects in 2018 and not delaying. So I plan on attending. I'll share at least from the commission. Look forward to any other feedback you have today to carry forward to that work session. I think some other things to recognize. One, there was strong support out of the referendum at the community level. And the more you hear from people, the more the expectation was that support was extended to have the projects happen now, not in 2020 or 2021. Second, also knowing that there's some financial trade-offs to consider, and I know that's why the council wants to be very sure that they make the very best decision. Councilor Christian is here, could comment on that. There's some significant decisions that need to be made and some rather large financial considerations as a result of that, with the reserve account and how the current sales tax works and how that might change if we begin the new financing for new projects. I'm hopeful that in working with Bound Council and the financial advisors that we can find a solution that would meet both goals. That would be kind of a double win for the community of could we keep the reserve account and how that status has been established and begin the projects and kind of meet both objectives. I think that would be my goal going into the work session, and finding a compromise and a phasing plan that would put some of the higher priority projects in motion soon. And then lastly, I think the councilors, as they kind of weigh on this decision, are going to need to be hearing from community leaders that you all gathered here today, as well as many of the other key stakeholders that work so hard to get the support for the Renew projects. And there are many organizations and many community citizens that kind of the time's upon us of the next big step with Renew. And there's several more beyond this one, but this is the next big step, and we at least need to be engaged, or our opinions, I guess, and perspectives won't be counted or won't matter. So just would encourage everyone to be thinking about contributing in some way over the next couple weeks. Look to Director Schmitz, Councilor Christian, of things I might have missed that should be relayed here to the commission today.
The only item I want to add is originally there was going to be the 2 counselors who had dealt with it at first.
Yep.
Now it's all 5 counselors. Hopefully will be in attendance, so it is an open meeting.
Okay,
We all get to hear the same thing.
great. Thank you. Director Schmitz, anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair Fryer. Excellent explanation. Thank you, Councilor Christian. I would simply also add that I presume there's going to be a number of packages of projects, phasing of projects, and we should continue to think about what projects we may want to do first, what projects can wait a little bit, and how we might want to group them from a management and construction perspective. I think we're all understanding the deadline with our double state tournament coming in August of 2020 at Johnson Miller Park. So that's obviously an urgent kind of deadline, so to speak. Well, there's 7 projects, and we're not going to do them all at once. There will probably be 2 or 3 series of sales tax bonds sold, so packages of projects over a number of years. So
Okay.
just keep that in mind.
I think it's a great point, Director Schmitz. One, I wouldn't want to ask Ryan to manage those 7 projects all at once and the rest of your team. Second is, we wouldn't have as I understand, the bonding capacity to do all of the issue in one single issue from a city standpoint.
Correct.
And third, we wouldn't have the revenue coming in to do this new bond issue all as one package, plus pay off our old bonds in the same kind of annual revenue stream. So I think it's a great recommendation for this commission and other key leaders across the community to be thinking about that phasing approach. And I think phasing, if we can start earlier, minimizes some risk, and I think some of it we've talked about here of, Ryan can probably speak to it best, but the construction inflation risk that we would have of if we wait 3 years, what does $13 million buy us in 3 years or 4 years versus what does it buy us today, and then with interest rates as well, that hopefully there's a balanced approach that can kind of mitigate some of those risks and realize more of the value sooner here in the community. So, any other insights, questions, recommendations from the commission? Again, September 19th, 1 p.m. at the ISD 88 board room. Okay, we'll move on to the next item of old business, Minnesota River Trail segment. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. You have before you a recommendation from me for you to send on to the City Council to reauthorize negotiations with the Farmers Co-op of Hanska and Klassen Plumbing and Heating for land acquisitions or land easements for a non-motorized trail along the Minnesota River between Park Street and 3rd North Street. Background on this, as you may recall, that we have a conceptual master plan for the Minnesota River Parkway, and that is page 9 of 14 in your packet. And then additionally, we applied for a legacy grant. We were authorized for application for a legacy grant back in 2008. And we were awarded $100,000 to design and construct a trail from 3rd South through Riverside Park upriver to basically 3rd North. And it was kind of a 2-year planning process and application process, and it basically got hung up in the end of that because of the fact that we didn't own the land, or we were not granted easements from those 2 private landowners. So it stalled, and we basically gave the $100,000 grant back to the DNR and did not construct the project. We designed it, but we did not construct the project. This is just another proposed trail segment in our system. And beyond that, in the Minnesota River Parkway corridor would be continuing upriver from 3rd North through Minnicon Park and coming out towards Front Street also. So you also have the design that we put together with consultants Bolton and Mink back in those years, page 10 of 14 in the packet. And it's my understanding that, well, there's new members to the board of directors at the Farmers Co-op of Hanska and a new general manager. And I think it's time to dust off this possible project and see if we can't come to an agreement. We want to certainly come to an agreement on the land before we go back to a state grant application. We want to have all the T's crossed and I's dotted before we go back for grant funding. and I'm quite optimistic. It is a regionally, regionally significant facility, and I'm optimistic that we would get state funding to assist with the project. So that's a little background. I don't know if there's any specific questions, comments, or concerns. There's no cost involved at this point. It's just simply authorizing city staff to get back to the discussion tables with these private landowners.
Okay, look for questions from the commission on the Minnesota River Trail segment.
Well, I think we looked at that as we did Park Tour maybe a couple of years ago already, and it seems to make sense. So I certainly would offer the motion to recommend that the city council reauthorize negotiations with those landowners.
Okay, we have a motion,
I'll second it.
and we have a second to recommend city council reauthorize negotiations to look at completing the non-motorized trail segment between Park and Third North. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. On to new business, item number 8, Director Schmitz, the Kiesling House.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. We have two questions on your table today related to the Kiesling House, the exterior facade. The roof has been replaced a few years back, but we have siding concerns, siding issues, and degraded windows at the Kiesling House. And the first question is, what type of materials should we be using to replace the worn-out siding and windows? If we use wooden materials, that requires more maintenance over the long term versus lower maintenance materials. And so you have before you on the action form a little over $24,000 up front to use wooden materials, or let's say $19,000 to use low maintenance materials. And then we project this out over the next few decades, as many as 50 years of maintenance. The wood and natural materials, we're estimating an additional $61,600 in maintenance versus the low maintenance materials of $11,666. So that's the first question. Do we want to use natural wooden materials or the low maintenance materials? Low maintenance materials are clad windows and hardy board siding. The second question is, should we be applying for state or federal grants to assist with this, with the projects? Presently, we're not under any requirements from state or federal regulators as far as how we maintain the Kiesling House. But if we enter into grant agreements, normally that comes with strings attached, so that we lose some local control, and the granting organizations have significant control over what we can do with maintenance, repairs, replacements, and even programming, I would say. So those are the two questions before you. There's a pretty significant difference over 5 decades when it comes to maintenance, repairs, and replacements of the materials. We do have our facility maintenance supervisor, Ryan Wire, here if you have any specific or technical questions about materials or construction methods. Another important aspect to keep in mind is that using non-original or non-wooden materials, the maintenance-free type materials, will most likely jeopardize our National Historic Registry status. national registry status is certainly helpful when you're applying for state and federal grants. But again, it comes with controls beyond local control at our facility. So if you have any questions for me or Ryan, we'll try to answer those two questions, or questions, and then you have the two before you. How would you like to proceed? Or recommend that the
question.
council?
I guess one question I would have, if I remember correctly, Kathleen Backer had come here and had recommended approval and some support to do programming there.
Yes.
We added new programming this year. How did the summer go, or kind of what's the kind of current status of the programming that's happening there?
Yes, Chair Fryer and Commissioners, this is the second year of the interpretive living history taking place during the summer season at the Kiesling House, offered by Kathleen Backer and her group. I haven't seen numbers as far as statistics of attendance and all that sort of stuff, but anecdotally, I've heard from people that they've enjoyed that. Very appropriate living history programming. And my understanding is that she plans to continue that in future years and possibly be looking for other partners to continue the programming. I think that it has probably concluded. Yeah, I think it has concluded after Labor Day. Any other questions?
One question for you, Tom. Okay, whichever one they approve this evening, now that this will go to our local HPC.
Yes,
It-
correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Counselor Christian. Where is that here? On the overview, item number 4. The next Heritage Preservation Commission
Oh,
meeting
there it
is
is. I didn't see
Monday. This coming Monday, so we will be presenting the same topic on Monday. And we'll have an answer for the HPC as far as how the Park and Rec Commission feels.
Just for clarity for me, are there any other funding sources besides the city or grants? I mean, up to this point, has it been city's responsibility for the upkeep and any maintenance as it relates to the Kiesling House? No private funding?
Correct. Mhm.
Okay, other questions? Interested in making a motion? Recommendation?
I think you get more value, obviously, out of the 30,394 in the long run. I'm just not familiar enough to know about historic registry and what the loss of that status would mean, other than you can't apply for grants on that building anymore. Is that the only thing that is jeopardized?
Commissioners, that's true. I would also add that it's listed in the registry, so the marketing and, national advertising that the historical organizations are involved with, it would, the Kiesling House would be in that book, or on that list, so to speak.
Is there a sign out there that says it's in the National Registry? There's a sign out there, but I don't remember exactly if that's listed on there. And then I'm wondering if that would go away.
There used to be.
I think there is, yes. I think there is on the historical marker.
Yeah, and then that maybe would have to be removed
Or modified.
or
or
modified.
changed.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
What's the timing of this project?
Well, we're long overdue for replacing the windows and siding, but it also will not get constructed this year regardless of these decisions. The contractors are all booked up and backed up, so we are looking at 2018 construction at the earliest. It is my understanding. I mean, 99% certain that we won't get the work completed. There's a possibility if the winter is relatively mild that this work could be done in the winter. siding and windows.
In my mind, I'd like to see the Park and Rec, Commission actually recommend to the council to either, not authorize, give them the A, B, and C. They're gonna ask for those options anyway. I mean, the HPC is gonna say, well, did they look at wood, the cost? Did they look at, you might as well just give it to them and go from there. I know as a counselor, after being on the commission, I wanna see all three.
But I suppose they're just looking for us to put our stamp of approval on one of them, what we would consider being appropriate.
It's certainly recommendations. The city council is the ultimate authority and decision maker on these matters, and they often look for recommendations from boards and commissions, as they will look for your recommendation and Heritage Preservation Commission's recommendation.
On some topics, it feels like there's a strong preference. On other ones, like this one, it feels like maybe don't have that. Dennis, would
Could
you
I
like
make
to
one comment?
if you
Dennis
would
Bourne.
introduce yourself and
Dennis Bourne, 711 South Front. We're talking about a historical building here, and it's got to look historical. And nobody's mentioned that yet, and I think you should look at that. What did they do 100 years ago? If it's aluminum, is it going to lose credibility as a historical site? Thank you.
all right, thank you, Dennis. Okay, would we like to take action here today? I assume the options are going to the city council probably no matter what, or do we need to take action to get it on the city council agenda?
I don't think it's urgent. I mean, it's a maintenance project that is long overdue or overdue. But if the commission is uncomfortable making a recommendation now and they want some time to think about it, it's up to the commission to how you feel now.
Oh, yeah, right.
Thank you, Commissioners. Ryan Wire, Facility Maintenance Supervisor.
Thank you, Ron.
So I put the report together. I don't know if it would help you to have a little more technical information or not. I won't bore you to death with hours on it, but the cladding options that are available right now are very customizable. So we can get customized cladded options through the window supplier to basically identically match what's there now. It just takes away the actual wood component. So it will be very, very, very similar to what's there. And as well as the siding options that are available. Hardy has either a wood grain or a smooth. I would actually prefer the smooth because it gives you a very similar look to what's there as well. They've come a long ways. I don't have a preference either way, but I think to fully make your decision easier, you have to understand that industry has come a long ways in making these things be historical significant. But if it's actually legit to change it to a different product from wood, then yes, it's going to be a different product. There's no way around that. But one other point that I didn't put in the report is currently the wood siding that's on the building is not original from 100 years ago. Currently the windows that are in there is not original to 100 years ago either. They were inserted somewhere in the 80s maybe, the windows. They're actually an insert that has a vinyl sleeve on the side. Again, those didn't come out until 80s, somewhere in there. So that doesn't make anything much easier maybe for you, but maybe a little more information to help you to where we are today.
But then if that's true, that it's not preserved to its historic building, and we maintained our status on the historic registry, wouldn't some of these upgrades, is it for sure we'd lose that?
Talking with Elwood, he really helped me a lot. He did a lot of the legwork early on, and I've been working with him on it. That is a definite gray area. It's not like they come out with a yearly inspection, But if somebody were to call them and inform them of the situation, they may send somebody out or ask for pictures, and it may be in jeopardy simply because we didn't replace with exactly we registered it with. The way I understand it is we registered it with the current situation,
I see.
and that's what they're going to kind of judge in on whether that was original or not. I don't know that that's accurate at this point, but
Okay. Thank you.
Ryan.
A comment like Ryan is stating, that this project has worked on for numerous years from one staff member to the next staff member. No, it is not original siding. That we did prove when it had to be repaired. So the state of Minnesota, I'm going to call them the gurus from the Minnesota State Historical Society. Okay, it's wood on there now. Here's how you registered it, the National Register. Here's what it has to stay. But again, in my feeling, all that is you're on the National Register. And as Mr. Schmidt said, when you start putting in for state and federal grants, it gets real tight on your control of the building. We ran into that in Herman Monument, things we wanted to do. Federal money, state federal money was used, they stopped us. You can't do this. It's like they own the decisions on the property. The city did learn a few items from that. Now when we designate buildings in parks, it's the building only. Riverside Park is a fine example. We almost got caught with that. They'd have had control of the park. No, we just put it on the building footprint only. But there was a lot of work went into this. In my mind, if I would be Ryan, I'd love to put steel siding and come back to me in 40 years from now when it needs replacement. But we can't do that. It is historic, so whichever route they want to go.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
thank you.
I'm going to assume that added some clarity to the decision-making here, and we're going to come up with something profound.
Sure.
Any other? Oh, Mayor's coming up to the microphone here. One more try.
Hi, Robert Boisman, Mayor. By the way, yes, I believe I was watching and listening on this situation when Mr. Christian was our building inspector and the hoops he had to try to jump through. Elwood is having the same problem. Yes, I understand our building products do improve, thank God. And everything is better, but SHPO doesn't see all that. And so this is the rules. Park Director Schmitz was around us when we were talking. First of all, we talked about a sign on the fence of Herman Heights, and that was an absolute nope. No questions, just nope. Don't move on. So then they noticed that the side of the building was starting to, the base was starting to have some problems. And we've got to get action on that immediately. And before the word immediately got out, someone mentioned a new improved playground. And everything about Herman was forgotten because they had to go and check the playground out. It's got nothing to do with the Herman Monument, but that was their most important thing, to check out the playground. It's weird for me. I think it was easier to teach third graders than to work with some of those people. I really am, and I'm sorry if I offended someone, but it's been a very, very difficult. It's been a long battle. That building has needed a replacement. That building has needed new heating and air conditioning, and they put a stop to some of that. Good luck, whatever you guys decide on going on. Seriously, good luck, and the historical Preservation Commission is still a little gun shy because of the building where the bank is now. So I'm not sure what their reaction is going to be either.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
You know, to comment a little more on Mayor Boisman's comment, you know, like this will go to the HPC. And remember now, I was a member on the HPC, I believe 10 years, I'm back on it. They're enforcing an ordinance that the city council approved. You know, they say, well, okay, what are they doing? They're enforcing an ordinance that was written by professionals through a grant from SHPO people, and it was okayed by the city council. Exactly what the Park and Rec Commission does. I mean, you know, they're enforcing whether you like it or not. Here's what our ordinance says. Here's what we need to propose and do. So it'll be a catch-22, whichever one of the 3 or 4 is decided.
Okay, is there action today by the Park and Rec Commission?
You know, if the commission wants to act on it today, if they feel strong, they could still authorize all 4 and A, B, C, or D being the number 1. First choice. First choice, second choice, skip that C.
Or would you like to defer?
Well, I'll speak up. I'm not a historic type person. I am history itself. You know, I guess I'm more of a dollar and cents type person, and I think of the future. We have other parcels that are on the historic registry that would bring people to New Ulm. We still would have a marker outside, and we'd have a building that was maintained for a long time. So I personally lean to B, but that's my opinion. Sure, that's a motion.
Just, I don't want to
Because
put
you
words
can
in your
always,
mouth.
because you can always vote it down, that's fine.
So we have a motion to recommend item B for the Kiesling House and repair with low-maintenance materials. Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, we have a second. Any more discussion?
If the person who made the motion, I'd still like to see the other options, or I believe, Tom, they're going to get sent to the HPC and council.
Yes, they are.
That's all. That's all I wanted to know.
Yes.
So all 4 will get sent.
Yeah, there's 2 questions. There's the material question, and then there's the funding question, or grant question. So it's 2 separate
So
questions.
it's not, and it's not a final decision, because obviously this is just our thought process,
This
what
is
should be done.
correct.
So, I guess others will have opinions as well, and that's kind of where I would stand on it.
I think if they watch the telecast or read in the minutes, they'll know it wasn't, we didn't jump to jump to the recommendation, so.
It's tough.
Welcoming more discussion on this by the city council. So we have a motion and second for item B. All the options will be presented as were presented here. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on to donations. Item number 9 should be a simpler
Well,
item to.
Let's hold on one moment,
Hold on
please,
one
Chair
moment.
Fryer and
Uh-oh.
Commissioners. There's still the second question of whether you think we should be,
Oh, the grant.
funding this locally or by not going for grants. I think if we do end up, if the council authorizes the low-maintenance materials, the state and federal grants may possibly not be an option. So maybe we don't have to make a decision on how you feel between the funding question of C and D.
Yeah, I think it depends on how it flows out of here, you know. We're not the final one, and obviously if it qualifies, if the majority of the commissions that are gonna review this are gonna go with, making it that it stays historic and restored as close to possible and pay the 85,000, well then I would guess that we would use the grants. And if we'd go with the lower one, I guess, then it's kind of a shot in the dark whether we'd get one, But I probably would try if it's not a whole lot of effort. I know what grants are like and not much fun, so I would say we'd have to fund it. With none a grant, we have to put, depending, I suppose, on the type of grant, generally a match or not? Maybe not on all.
Usually a match, yes. These type of grants, they're
So if
normally
it's a
is
half and
match.
half grant, or half and half match, needless to say, we would still be under by not going for the grant and doing it at the lower price.
Mhm. And the grant question again is probably losing local control. If you're going to go for a state or federal grant, you will be losing some local control from the property. And so that's a trade-off on whether you want to fund it locally or go for state and federal grants.
Okay, Director Schmitz, were you looking for us to take action on the second part?
It's not necessary, but if you feel strongly one way or the other, I'm certain that, the council would, always likes to have recommendations. So it's not necessary, but it's certainly on the table for your consideration.
It's the only other one I would add, not to complicate it further, would be we're just about ready to talk about the next agenda item, donations, and see there's a lot of other facilities and parks that have received private funding support from the community, and if programming continues to grow with the Kiesling House, might that at least open a door to maybe some private funding support as well if members of the community are interested in reinvesting in its kind of historic status.
Right, there's other potential for funding partners other than these historic state and federal grants.
Okay. Anyone offering a motion for guidance to the city council as it relates to applying for state or federal grants?
I make a motion that we go with D.
Okay, we have a motion for D, not applying for state or federal grants. Thank you. Is there a second?
I guess I'll second it. It kind of goes hand in hand with the original motion on the materials, so it seems to make sense.
We have a second. Any more discussion?
The only other discussion item I might add is that if this were $1 million project or multi-million-dollar project, the numbers would be different and the need for grant funding or outside funding would be different. The dollar amounts for this type of project are certainly within the realm of municipal funding.
Okay, thank you. If no further questions, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now I think we're on to item number 9, donations. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. You have before you a number of donations offered to the city over the past month, including for the Herman 5K Tot Trot Fun Run, $150 cash from NU Current Electric. For the Pollinator Park, a shade structure and table from an anonymous donor. At Riverside Park, a ginkgo tree and stone marker honoring Goosetown from an anonymous donor. And then in German Park, an oak tree and stone marker honoring Richard D. Silvati from friends. $100 cash for a paver stone from Rosalie Piper Forst honoring Randy Kronig. And $200 cash for a paver stone from Casagirdis and the New Ulm High School class of 2002 honoring Jason Wallner. Those are the donations offered and the various thank you letter address, names and addresses. $450 total cash value, and then the shade structure table and trees and stones.
Okay, thank you, Director Schmitz. Any questions on the donations? Would look for a motion to recommend City Council acceptance.
I make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion,
I'll second it.
and we have a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to surplus items. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. This is the annual request for autumn cleaning. You also have an annual request for spring cleaning. And so you have in the attachment a list of items that are no longer necessary for the conduction of our business and programs at Park and Recreation. There is one typographical error that we omitted in the packet here. Item number 11 is an elliptical, the Octane Walk Jog Elliptical that's worn out at the Recreation Center. So that will be added before it goes to council. So I recommend that you forward the surplus list to the city council.
Okay, any questions on the surplus list? Look for a motion.
I make that motion, that we surplus this stuff, or recommend that the council do it.
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
and there's a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to reports. Director Schmitz.
Thank you, Chair Fryer and Commissioners. I don't think I have anything to add that's not on the agenda, along with the updates, except, well, I certainly want to remind the commission that we will be having a work session in the not-too-distant future related to a potential South Goostown Park. Staff is still compiling a number of, a group of information for the commission. Other than that, let's see here, I'd like to highlight the Adams Park Nature Trail Eagle Scout project completed by Glenn Howell. That's complete. And then Connor Shopper's working on improvements at the Pollinator Park. So if there's any questions from the commission, we'll certainly try to answer those, but I have nothing else to add that's not listed in the packet.
Okay, thank you, Director Schmitz. On to commissioner reports. Any reports from commissioners? Okay, reminder for the city council work session on Renew coming up a week from tomorrow at 1 p.m. For those that are available and interested, would look forward to having you join me there. Our next meeting October 9th, 4 p.m. And I believe that's the
That-
meeting that is actually moving over to ISD 88 board meeting, right?
Yes, that's a mistake in the packet. It says City Hall. No, that will be at District 88 Boardroom at the middle school, and I'll remind you with directions before next month's meeting.
Outstanding. Any other reports for today? Okay, if not, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.